We are here to talk about Vito's struggle with diabetes. And generally, I find it best to just start at the beginning. Vito, tell us when you first discovered you had diabetes. Were there symptoms and your first doctor's visit and where you went from there? So just kick it off with that intro information.
So the funny, if we can use the word funny, story is I'm an IT guy. I'm a Unix system engineer. Somewhere near the year 2000, my wife and I still can't agree on when it happened, and my doctor's office has changed systems and EMR systems, so we don't actually have records. But I was on my way to the cafeteria to buy some Zingers, the chocolate ones with the chocolate icing, and there was a health fair at the cafeteria. So I'm like, oh, well, cool, let's go do this. And one of the stations was a blood sugar test. They stuck my finger and it was high. I couldn't begin to tell you what it was, but they suggested I go talk to my doctor because it wasn't like it needed to be. So I made an appointment, and somewhere between 2004 and 2006, I was told I'm type 2 diabetic, and that's kind of the genesis. But even my doctor, he's been my doctor for over 20 years. He remembers the Zinger story because it was icing on the cake. That's where I was headed. I didn't get Zingers that day, for what it's worth.
Tell us your numbers. What kind of numbers did you have when they first told you were type 2 diabetic? A1C, fasting glucose?
Again, it's been too long, too much water under the bridge, but I was pulling my records. Somewhere is in the 8s, 9s, and 10s. There was a couple of periods over the years. I mean, to be honest, I generally start my I start my spiel with, "Hi, I'm Vito. I'm a bad type 2 patient. I watch what I eat by watching what I eat." I had an A1C in the 10s. I saw a 12.3 many, many years ago. Probably got my attention enough to start riding a bicycle. My weight had always been heavy. I quit getting on the scale about 260. I believe I probably topped out about 280. I've got a couple of pictures that lend a little bit of credence to that. Riding a bicycle, I got down to 200, and I was like, yeah, I can do what I want, eat what I want. But it basically, if I were to average out over everything, I probably averaged 9, 10 most of the 15 years. Prescribed metformin, acarbose, more recently Farxiga, and just COVID. When COVID hit, I got frustrated and basically said, I'm just going to watch what I eat and try to eat better, which is just lying to myself.
You were basically a good boy, right? The doctor said you got diabetes, you take these meds, you don't eat so much, and you took the meds, you didn't eat so much.
I wouldn't say that I didn't eat so much. I took the meds in hopes that it was taking the meds like, oh, here's your meds, you can eat what you want. And it didn't dawn on me until, the rest of the story, where that was not the right direction.
Now, at some point, you got motivated. Usually when people get motivated, that's a code word for you got scared. Tell us when and how that happened.
All right, so that's the current future here. 6-7 months ago, again, eating what I want because I feel fine. I quit my meds, no symptoms. I go to my eye doctor every year. I feel my feet. I have feeling. I don't have any of the traditional symptoms other than I know in the back of my brain I'm a diabetic. 7 months ago, I got an internal infection that didn't go away. Normally, if I get sick, it's a 24-hour thing. I'm up and I go. This one on day 2, 3, my wife insisted I go to urgent care, and urgent care ran their test and filled a cup, and from that came back and said, hey, did you know your sugar's kind of out of whack? And I'm like, oh, well, yeah, I'm kind of diabetic. They're like, you probably want to follow up with your doctor. So the following week, I went in and registered a 12.1 on the A1C instant read. And as I've grown older, I've got some older kids, two older kids in their 30s and an 18-year-old. And both the older kids are married and there's no grandkids. But my brain instantly went to, well, you got this infection, which has nothing probably to do with the diabetes, but I call it my 2x4 moment. So scared is probably accurate, but it was more like, well, you have a choice. You can continue to be doing what you're doing and getting the same results and lose toes, lose your vision, lose your legs, or your life, or you can decide to get smart, find out if it's too late. I was under the impression that your pancreas can burn out. And if not too late, what I can do. So the doctor visit, they immediately said, well, it's time for insulin. I'm like, yeah, I'm not there. Give me a week, give me a month, and we'll talk. If I can't do anything about it, we'll talk. I started scouring the internet, found your channel, found many other people, Dr. Fung, Dr. Ekberg, and a couple of celebrities, Thomas DeLauer and those guys. But I just started consuming everything I could consume mentally. And everybody had the same common denominator. It's like, well, if you cut your carbs, then you can turn this around. And it dawned on me that early in my doctor visit, he had said, sugar's the poison. And if you don't want to hurt yourself, then quit the poison. But, we all disregard that and go have our croissant. So I decided, okay, low carb sounds like an idea. I can probably make that happen. We'll drop to 80 carbs a day, 100 carbs a day. And in 90 days, I went 12-1 to 5-4. My doctor's office had been giving me an A1C every 30 days up until September when I needed it. I got serious in July. So July, August, September was the A1C range I wanted. We went 12-1, 10-0, 8 something, and then 5-4 when I finally arm wrestled him into doing the A1C. At that point, I was so frustrated. I told him, look, I don't care if the insurance pays for it or not. I want an A1C test, and I want it now. And
now, let me interrupt for a minute and ask, you're saying 12.1 to 5.4 in 3 months' time?
90 days.
90 days. Yeah. That to me, that's amazing. And when we hear testimonies like yours, and I know this is a reality, this can happen, but we'll always have people say, well, now wait a minute, an A1C is a 3-month average. That's not even possible. You're here telling us and I've heard dozens of others say something similar. Somehow it is possible, and it certainly happened to you.
I would say even more so, don't take my word for it. I'll be happy to share my CGM data, because that was the other fight. I want to CGM. I have to know cause and effect. I'm an IT guy. I'm a data guy. I have to know cause and effect. I ate a banana. I watched your video. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that'll do. It was an 80-point spike. But instead of an up and down in an hour and a half, it took 45, 50 minutes to start rising. It went up 80 points, and it took 4 hours to come back, only because I got the little gadget on my arm. I pulled my data from the website regularly, and then I re-massage it into a daily average or a weekly average so that I can see, because I experiment. Again, I'm a bad patient. I'm not taking my diabetes meds. Every so often, I'll drop them for a week or two and see where my levels against my carb load is. But 90 days to 5.4. And then I realized, well, okay, now it's a challenge. I went keto. I said, how about 20? We'll shoot for 20 net carbs, but that's hard because my wife's insisting I eat salads. So we'll say 30 net a day, no more if I can help it. Occasionally I trip to 40, but 95% of the time I'm under 30 carbs a day. Well, the next 90 days I went to 5-1. So I went from 12-1 to 5-1 in 184 days. Again, charted it out so that I could see it for myself. And I've become an evangelist, ketologist. I'm not sure the right word. I tell all of my friends and family, it's like, I know you're diabetic. I'm like, oh, we're on insulin. I'm like, does your pancreas work? if your pancreas works and you're doing anything, if you would just work yourself down out of the carbs, you would have a better life. But sorry, another friend of mine from church, he's diabetic, he's type 2, he's on insulin and whatever shots. He and I had a real heart to heart. And I'm like, dude, you're older than I am. Do you want to be around for your grandkids? He goes, yeah, but honestly, I just go to the doctor and I tell him, look, you need to up my meds, you need to up my plan until I decide to make a change. And the reality is, I talked with my doctor and said, Doc, why is this not the immediate answer, the mode that you heal people with? Why don't you tell them, if you do this, you don't need the meds? And he said to me, because I can't get you to put down the donut. I'm a bad diabetic, because that's where I was for the last 17 years. I want to eat what I want to eat. But now I'm low carb. I'm eating good. I'm eating really good. And I'm slow and steady losing weight. I'm down almost 30 pounds in the last 6 months.
What do you weigh now?
173 last Saturday.
And what is your height?
I am 5'11" and a half.
Okay, well, it sounds about perfect, and you look great. Yeah, you must have been awfully excited when you had that 5.4. Were you expecting an A1C that low, or did that surprise you?
So the CGM is not perfect, right? Everybody understands it's data. It's not accurate, but it shows trends. So the CGM was telling me 5.9, if I remember right. I also went on Amazon and I bought the 4-pack of the home kit, and it's 5.7. So I knew I was close, but I didn't know who was more accurate or not. After I got my doctor to relent, they stuck my finger, they walked out, she walked back and said 5.4, and I like, touchdown. And the doctor just looked at me and shook his head. It can be done. It can absolutely be done.
Yeah.
My goal now is 18% body fat. I don't know what I should weigh, and BMI is a bad standard. I'm at 22% body fat. I figure 20 or 18, wherever the weight is, 20 or 18 ought to be sustainable with the diet. With lifestyle, because it's not really considered a diet anymore.
You know, one of the things that I find fascinating is that you went for years and years unmotivated, just playing around, not really doing too much, trying just a little bit. And suddenly it's like you got serious, and you, being an IT guy, you started looking at the data. You were looking at the home A1C test. You're looking at a CGM constantly. You're getting A1Cs at a lab, and you're just drinking in all this data, and suddenly motivation has just blossomed. You seem like you're a volcano of motivation now. It's amazing how motivated you could get when you see what's really happening with your body when you eat certain foods.
Absolutely. I told the doctor, so she prescribed, my doctor is a male, the practitioner that saw me because he was out, prescribed me a new CGM and a new set of strips. She tells me test 5 times a day. Doesn't really give me a lot of guidance, but again, I'm an 18 plus year. I know where I maybe ought to test, but she only prescribed twice a day. Well, the reality was I was testing 9 times a day. I got up before I ate, after I ate, after I ate 2 hours, before I ate, after I ate, after I ate, before I ate, after I ate, after I ate in bed. And I'm like, I go to refill the script, and Walmart's like, no, you can't. It's too soon. Like, what do you mean it's too soon? I got to know this. So about that time, I called my insurance, found out that a CGM was not out of the question, called the doctor's office, and they just gave me a runaround until I was like, look, I don't care. Just write the prescription. At this point, I'll self-pay. And I believe I do self-pay. My Libre 3 is affordable, but it's not, it's not 10 or 20 bucks. But again, the cost of the data for me, it's worth it, because there's no question. It took 7 solid days of not being on Farxiga before my levels started to rise. This time, because I was on a full dose. Previously, I was on a half a dose. I quit taking it, and within 12 hours, I started to rise. So I'm seeing the physiological effects of the medicine and its half-life, and again, my carb load. So I'm still eating like I need to, but there's a couple of other things rolling around in the background that I'm trying to rule out. So the quicker I can not have to refill the meds prescription, the happier I'll be. I'll have a CGM as long as I'm allowed to get one.
So are you fairly comfortable with your A1C and just want to maintain that, or are you looking for anything better?
So I am looking for a touch better. I was disappointed in my 5.1. I really wanted a 4.9. I can't really cry too hard about it, but I was really leaning towards the 4.9. If I can truly level with no meds at 5.1, 2, 3, it's a win. However, if I can level and have 5.0 or 4.9, that's just more. That's more emphasis on anyone who asks. So I try not to just go overboard when people ask, but I am excited. When you see a miracle, and it involves you, it's hard not to tell people. And it's even harder when they have a similar symptom set and you're like, hey, it can be done. So, you got to decide. You got to have that 2x4 moment. That's what I call it. I got smacked in the head getting sick and I was like, wait a minute. Well, then you press forward. But until you decide, you can't keep doing the same thing and expect different results, right?
When I contacted Vito, he was a little bit leery about doing an interview for one particular reason, and that was he had another health issue that was not resolved, and he didn't, I guess, want to bring a downer into the program by acknowledging that all his problems weren't solved. And I said, well, I think we ought to tell it so that people will realize that as powerful as keto and low carb is, it's not a magic bullet. It's not a magic armor that you wear that guarantees you'll never have another health issue. So I will let Vito tell in his own words what he is still struggling with. It's not blood sugar, but it is serious.
I recovered from my second COVID January last year. Sometime about March, I believe it was, my left calf started cramping like I'd never felt before, throwing me out of bed. My leg, I could do nothing to let it subside except stand on it with all of my weight to force my heel to the floor. Fast forward to my infection. To fight the infection, I was prescribed an antibiotic that's got a real sketchy background. I was put on Met, I was put on Farxiga, I went keto, I did all of these things all at once, and the infection went away, I started getting better. But then I started realizing that my left leg is weaker. It's wasting, as in it's 1.5 to 2 inches smaller than my right leg. And I have a 2-story house, so me going upstairs is now very challenging and honestly dangerous. So something is attacking my leg. It feels like it's autoimmune. The doctor and I have, been looking at everything we can, and we're elevating to specialists. I'm going to get a, high-tech MRI and everything else to deal with it. I can say with certainty, and my doctor will back this up, my kidneys, my liver, probably my pancreas, my body otherwise, my blood sugar, I'm healthier now than I have been in 2 decades. But I'm struggling with walking, which is actually why I'm doing my little test, because there's a Farxiga connection. My wife and I thought, well, let's drop the Farxiga and see if you quit falling. I haven't fallen since I quit taking it. So I don't know if that's causality or not yet.